Hello. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to give everybody like another 30 seconds to hop in, and then we will get started. Okay. It is 10 a.m. and we are going to go ahead and get started this morning. My name is Cassidy Lewis. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, and welcome to the webinar put on by Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers in partnership with Virginia Lawyers Weekly. Our topic today is marketing your law firm on a budget by our managing partner, Mr. Jim Hurley. We're going to take the next hour or so and talk about some marketing tactics that you can implement within your law firm that don't break the bank. If you all have questions, feel free to add them to the chat and I will make sure that they get asked. I am now going to hand over the mic to Mr. Jim Hurley to go ahead and get started.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm very excited to talk about marketing on a budget. And I'm Jim Hurley, and I work for Cassie Lewis, our Chief Marketing Officer. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about marketing. Before I start, who am I? I'm from Buffalo, New York. I'm a huge Buffalo Bill fan. I went to college out in Tucson, Arizona at the University of Arizona. Bear down, and I ended up in Virginia in the early 1990s. Why did I end up here? Oh, my wife is from Virginia. That's why I ended up here. And I've been practicing personal injury for about 30 years. And during those 30 years, I've really focused on marketing and trying to build a business. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And then Cassie's going to help me with the slide presentation. And off we go, Miss Cassie. All right, here at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, to give everyone an idea, we're a 10-lawyer firm. We have about 50 employees, and we spend about 20% of our gross revenue on marketing. Cassie oftentimes tells me we should spend about 70% of our gross revenue on marketing, but I try to explain to her then salaries might not be paid. So we try to stay around the 20 to 25%. But before we got to this point, when the firm was still unbelievably young, we really spent a lot of time and effort on marketing without spending vast amounts of money. So really the focus of my chat today is what you can do to market and bring in business without spending vast amounts of money. Now, the three areas we focus on in order to accomplish that is what we call friends of the firm. Essentially, that's people you know. We also focus on other attorneys, because if you think about it, other attorneys a lot of times can be a great referral source. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. The other thing is digital, and I still say internet, because I'm going to be 66 years old in May. And when I started out, we had yellow legal pads, and we had pens, and then we had phones. That cords you actually talk to. So I come from a different generation when I started out, but digital, as everyone knows, unbelievably important. So I will talk a little bit about digital and what we do. My technical know-how in digital is pretty limited because, as I say, I'll be 66, but we spend a lot of time and effort on that. So we will talk a little bit about that. So I want to go ahead and start out with friend of the firm. That the term we use at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers is friend of the firm. Oftentimes, people refer to it as the database of people you know. But if you think about it, database, that's so cold and that's so impersonal. And so much of marketing, especially when you're marketing on a budget, is being personable, getting to know people, having them like you, having them trust you. So we call everybody we know our friend of the firm. And everybody can do this. It's easy to say, but unbelievably hard to do. And I'm going to explain why it's unbelievably hard to do. But our friend of the firm, we have current clients, we have past clients. So everybody should have current clients and should have past clients. We also have what we call former intakes. That's people that contacted our firm. We were unable to officially represent them, but we helped them in some other way. We have our vendors, people that we deal with from a business standpoint, like the tremendous people at Virginia Lawyer Weekly. Virginia Lawyer Weekly does an amazing job. I would encourage everyone on this phone call to utilize Virginia Lawyer Weekly. They do great things. They're great marketers. They're great friends. So that would be an example of vendors that we deal with on a regular basis. Our community partners, we'll talk a little bit about that, but Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers is a firm believer in helping out the community. Because if you think about it, your success, generally speaking, rests upon the community you live in. So you should really give back to the community that you live in to say thank you for the success that they're giving you. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then anybody else we know that doesn't fit into those categories. So that's our friend of the firm. And I said, it sounds really easy, but the reason it's so hard is because you have to spend a lot of time, effort, and attention to it. And you have to do it every day. You have to do it every week. You have to do it every month. You have to do it every year. And that's why it's so hard. It's easy to go ahead and do it for a month or 2 months or 6 months, and then you kind of stop doing it. So that's the hardest thing. Let me talk a little bit about how we touch our friend of the firm or how we contact them. I am not a marketer by trade or education. Cassie, our chief marketing officer, has all the degrees in marketing, and she understands all the technical aspects of marketing. And she often reminds me, I really don't have that background. And I get that, okay? As a lawyer, we think we know everything. I tell my wife, whose name is Pam, I know everything. But she often reminds me, no, I don't. So as we move forward on this podcast about marketing on a budget, one of the things I'd like to express to you is you're never going to know everything. You're never going to know how to market on a budget and do everything. You're always constantly learning. You're giving advice, you're getting advice. But these are some of the areas that we deal with that have been unbelievably successful for us. And again, this is marketing on a budget. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. And quite frankly, we're not even talking about tens of thousands of dollars. But it does take time and energy. And if you put your time and energy into it, you can do this without spending vast amounts of money. So friend of the firm, and you should have a friend of the firm. How do we touch base with them? We send them emails from time to time. And there's lots of businesses that can help you generate periodic emails. What are some of the things we try to do with the emails? Number one, we don't do it so many times that we bug the person. You don't want to bug the people, but you want them to remember you. So generally speaking, we try to touch base via email, maybe once a month. Something fun, something interesting, something not law related. And we find that if we can touch base with them via email, maybe once a month or so, that reminds them of what Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyer does, who is Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers. So if there's a case out there that they might want to refer, then they can think, oh, my neighbor, car accident, injury. I get all this stuff from Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers. I'm going to refer this person to them. Mailings. We still do traditional mailings. And I know we live in an age, A1, which is really AI. And the reason I say A1 is we were in a TV shoot for a commercial, and they started talking about artificial intelligence, and I mistakenly called it A1, which is the steak sauce. So all of a sudden I saw these people behind the camera start laughing, and I didn't realize why. So it's an inside joke, but marketing is kind of lighthearted. So this presentation is not your typical, I'm a lawyer and I'm going to tell you what to do. That's not really what marketing on a budget is. It's being creative, being a little bit lighthearted. You got to have some personality, whatever your personality is, you got to have some personality. So for mailings, even though we live in the age of AI and digital and the internet, I get that, we still do mailings. And what type of mailings do? We do postcards, which are really the most economical. We do other type of mailings too, but since this is marketing on a budget, a simple postcard you can go ahead and send to your friend of the firm, and it's not super expensive. And again, there's businesses out there, print shops out there that can help coordinate that for you. You give them the friend of the firm list, whether it's 100 names and addresses, whether it's 500 names and addresses, whether it's 5,000 names and addresses. But you coordinate with them and then they go out. And again, mailings, how often we do those mailings. I'm a firm believer in mailings. I love mailings because I still like to get mail. So in the past, we tried to do one every month. But as we've gotten bigger and we've grown, our friend of the firm list is now 15,000 plus. It gets really, really expensive for us. So Cassie's indicating it's more. And she's muted right now. So the best part about this podcast is Cassie is muted. So I'm allowed to say anything I want to say about Cassie, and she's not allowed to chime in. Cassie and I do a lot of things like this, so usually it's back and forth. So, but I did want to say that Cassie is muted, so I can say whatever I want about her. But what Cassie said is that we're spending so much money on the mailings, one a month's probably not economically feasible. And as I say, you've got to learn from others. So we're not doing mailings that often, but we still do mailings maybe once every 2 or 3 months. And postcards are the most economical. So I would really suggest trying to do that. And then the other thing that we try to reach people, and if I could really focus on one thing at the end of the podcast, I'll talk about some things you should really try to do, right? Because, naturally I'm talking for, 30, 45 minutes about all these things that we do and marketing on a budget, and it covers a whole lot of material. 95% of the people on this call will do absolutely nothing. They might think, hey, it was some good information. I'm going to think about doing this. We already do this, and maybe I'll do a little bit more of this. But as a general rule, I have found 95% of the people, when they listen to a podcast or if they go to a marketing seminar, they'll learn a lot, but then they'll not do anything with it. So at the end, I'm going to really encourage everybody to do 1 or 2 things that they can do. So this is one of the 1 or 2 things I'd really recommend. Social media, which obviously is part of digital, and we're going to talk about digital later on. Social media is unbelievably prevalent. I get it. I'm not a social media guy by nature, simply because of the demographics. But if you're dealing with the vast majority of people that now social media is how they communicate, what they do, you have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have LinkedIn, you have TikTok, you have Instagram. I know all the names and I know all the words. And I'm not actively involved in social media, but I realize how important it is for the business. So social media, whatever type of law you do, especially if it's personal injury, and I would think a fair amount of people on the podcast are personal injury lawyers. So I'm kind of focused on that. But from a marketing standpoint, you got to utilize social media. So there are people out there and there are businesses out there that are really good at social media. If you're a younger person or a digital native, as they say, you could even do your own social media. But again, it's hard to do because you have to do it on a regular, consistent basis. So however you decide how you do social media, one of the things I would really, really encourage is to do raffles. And essentially what we do here at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, every month, thereabouts, we'll have a raffle. 1 month, it may be 10 gift cards from Wawa's for gas. 1 month, it may be, here's a big screen TV to watch the Super Bowl. But we always try to have interesting raffles with some type of prize that's worthwhile enough for people to enter. And it doesn't cost a whole lot of money. And again, if you remember, the whole point of this marketing podcast is not to spend a lot of money. And you just want to have a raffle and interact with the people that follow you on social media. And in the beginning, you're going to have terrible results, dismal, like zero. How many people entered my raffle? Zero entered my raffle. Well, zero entered my raffle, so then I'm not going to do it anymore. That's not a good attitude to have. It's like anything else. When you're starting something, you have to realize you're not going to get a whole lot of immediate return, but you're building something over time for your practice. You're building something over time for your business. So with the raffles, my suggestion would be start out really small. Say I'm going to have a raffle every 3 months, and just slowly build on that. And then over time, that the raffle will start to really generate a whole lot of attraction and attention, and people will begin to get to know who you are and what you do. I often say who you are and what you do, because how can people refer you business if they don't know who you are, if they don't know what you do? And this is a relatively inexpensive way to do it. Now, as I told you before, Cassie's on mute. Cassie, I'm not sure if you have the possibility to actually talk during the podcast,
Yes.
but Cassie's the one that understands the technical aspects of the raffles. So Cassie, it would be great if you could kind of chat to our audience about the raffles. And again, this is my asterisk, or this is my footnote. For you lawyers that were on law review, were really smart, you remember footnotes. This is my footnote. The raffles were not my idea. I thought that I poo-pod. That's a legal term, by the way. I poo-pod the raffle idea on social media because I didn't get it. But Cassie really understood it and got it. So Cassie, why don't you talk a little bit about the importance of social media and raffles to all our friends on the podcast?
Sure. So, we again recognize the importance of our database, or of what we call our friend of the firm. And we need to, one, talk to people within our database. And then number two, we need to add more people to that database, right? Social media is the best way to meet your community. As you all may know, people are intimidated by the Esquire in your name. So we use social media as a way to meet people in our community. And then we use the raffles as a way to get people to basically give us their information so that they can be entered into front of the firm, and that then we can market to them and tell them who we are and what we do. Unfortunately, we don't own our web traffic. We don't own the TV space, the billboard space, but what we can own is information for the people that live in our area. And so, like Jim said, when we started it, they would have a few hundred people. Our most popular raffle will have up to 13 or 14,000 people that enter it. So we essentially create a social media post, and then we do an ad for anywhere between $300 and $500, and it runs no longer than 45 days. Usually about 30, 35 days is when we cut it off. And again, we send people to our website to fill out the form. We find that people will fill out the form for the raffle and then go clicking all throughout the website to find out, well, what's this company I'm entering anyway? Even clients, current clients and former clients love it. It's a way for them to stay in contact with us. And we do have them, they had several times throughout the year, they'll win something. We present the winner live on social media. So I'll usually go live on a Friday at lunchtime and say, hey, we're going to basically pick a name out of a fishbowl for who can win this 85-inch TV, or who's going to win one of the $100 gift cards. So that is how we do the raffles.
Okay, excellent, Cassie. I may call on Cassie from time to time because like many lawyers, I think I'm brilliant. And like many lawyers, I think I'm unbelievably intelligent, articulate, and people hang on every word I say. But I realize that's not really true. So to break up my monologue, I'll call on Cassie from time to time to kind of help from her standpoint how you can market on a budget.
Okay, Jim, we got some questions too. Number one, Albert said something wrong. He said go Bills. I think he meant to say go Birds, but he did say go Bills. So Albert's your
Excellent.
friend.
I'm
Joe
not
said,
sure, I'm not sure who the Philadelphia Eagles are and who would be a fan of those, but go Bills.
Joe asked, any recommended software to track your contacts for your database?
That is a great question. I'm gonna let Cassie answer.
Joe, it depends on what your tech stack is. So if you have case management software, you should be able to track your contact list there. Here we use FileVine. If you do not have case management software, you may want to look into software called HubSpot. They are a good, I'm trying to think if they are good software to track your contacts, and they connect with a lot of other pieces of software. And Joe, I see your last question. I'm going to wait to ask that because he's going to talk about that a little bit later.
All right. Cassie, thank you for that. And next, we're going to talk a little bit about community involvement. And again, that's a way to keep in contact with your friend of the firm or people that know you. And you can do community partnerships for relatively inexpensive on a budget. So one of the things that we really focus on here at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, you want to be unbelievably successful. You want to be successful for yourself, you want to be successful for your law firm, and you want to be successful for your family. And the majority of the time, that success is going to come from the community. So you want to be sure that you give back to the community in the appropriate way. And since you're doing that, you want to be sure the community realizes you do it. So it's a double win. You're giving back something to the community, that's a positive. You're letting the community know, hey, you're important to me, and I'm giving back to you. So remember me in the future if you may need me for legal type work. So it's a double win. So here at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, we spend a fair amount of money. And again, this is marketing on a budget, so I get that. But we really try to give back to the community. So I'm going to talk a couple examples of what we do. And you don't have to necessarily put the same amount of dollars into it, but a couple examples of ideas that we've used that have really turned out to be unbelievably beneficial. Each and every year, we essentially say to the community, we're going to give $10,000 to a school, whoever gets the most votes. And then we have a second and we have a third prize, but $10,000 is the top prize. And we essentially blast that out over the community, and people can vote on their favorite school. And at the end, the school with the most votes gets a check for $10,000. And we started that years and years ago, and we build on it each and every year. And this past year, Portsmouth Catholic Regional School, which is one of the local schools here that's K through 8th grade, won it. And it was presented in the gym, and there was a big presentation, and Bill O'Mara, one of my younger partners, went to present the check. And it was really nice. It was special. It was warm. And then we were able to utilize that goodwill in other ways as well. So my advice would be pick something that's kind of important to you and to your community and try to do something like that every year. And like anything else, you'll build on it and you'll build on it. The first year, it won't really work out great. The second year will be a little bit better. The third year will be a little bit better. And over time, it'll turn out to be something really, really worthwhile. And it's a win-win. Now, the other thing we do with community partnerships, and again, you can do this on a budget, is that most communities kind of like their sport teams in some shape, form, or fashion, whether it's high school or whether it's college. And it could be something like the Buffalo Bills or the Philadelphia Eagles. But when you're talking about professional sports, that's not really marketing on a budget. But what we started to do a few years ago, and we had talked about it, not really done it, is to help sponsor local sport teams. And it does cost some money, but interestingly enough, it's not as much as you may think. So we started out with some of the local high schools that we had a connection with, and that was very, very reasonably priced. So that we sponsored a football team or a basketball team, and then the announcements or signage that would have Cooper Hurley injury lawyers. So that's something I would strongly encourage you to look into. And then colleges, we also started doing local colleges. We're in the Norfolk, Virginia area, and that encompasses Hampton Roads. No one knows what Hampton Roads is, except if you live in Hampton Roads. We're essentially coastal Virginia. So we have Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Hampton, Newport News. So we started sponsoring some of the local colleges, Hampton University, Old Dominion University, Norfolk State University. Now they're a little bit more expensive, but they have packages that aren't that expensive. So we started doing that, and that's been pretty successful for us. That's really helped our brand, which we're going to talk about later. So that those would be the two things. You want to get involved with your community. You want to give back to your community. It does cost some money, but you can structure in a way that's not a huge amount of money. All right, now we're going to move on to something really exciting, attorney to attorney marketing. And probably the majority of people on this podcast are attorneys. And many times, and I did not realize this, and again, I defer to Cassie. This was a great idea Cassie had. The vast majority of Cassie's great ideas do come from me. So we try to acknowledge that. But every once in a while, and Cassie, you can unmute and feel free to come in whenever you want. Every once in a while that I actually come up with a good idea that Cassie doesn't take credit for. But that I've always believed into attorney to attorney marketing, i.e. having other lawyers refer you business, or you refer other lawyers business. It can go both ways. But when Cassie started working for the firm, and this would have been over 7 years ago, she really laser focused on that and looked at all the data and said, hey, Jim, this is an area the firm and you and everybody in the firm really needs to focus on. So I give full credit to Cassie on this. But wherever you practice and whoever you are, I would spend a fair amount of time and effort in trying to do attorney to attorney marketing. You know, what does that mean? It means something different to everybody, but you can really do it on a lower budget. Here at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, on this PowerPoint, there's a picture of me with a red tie, so I look very impressive. To the right of me on the screen is my son, Jimmy Hurley, who's a marketing assistant, so he helps market the firm. And that was a local bar association project. But what we do here is we have a dedicated department that really focuses on attorney to attorney. If you're a solo practitioner or a small law firm, you might not necessarily have a dedicated department, but you can have resources within your firm to focus on that. And then we try to do various things. And then the data-driven strategy, as I say, Cassie is data-driven. I am not a numbers guy by nature. And so that's one of the reasons she focuses on that. And we have a good referral network. So what do we do and how do we do it? How can we actually help you do something with this? So the next slide really talks about that. And that the handwritten notes, I know this sounds silly. And I know if you're young, you may not understand what a handwritten note is. So I'm going to go ahead. What a handwritten note is essentially, it's called an envelope, right? So you have an envelope. And again, this is for my younger friends on the podcast. And then you have some type of stationery. And you can't see what this says, but it says thank you. And what I try to do each and every month is I try to write 3 or 4 handwritten notes to other lawyers saying thank you. It can be for a referral they gave us. It can be for me bumping into them at lunch. It can be me going to some type of local bar function. But it's amazing how few lawyers will actually take the time to write a thank you note. And it doesn't have to be an extensive thank you note, couple lines, sign it. And people really do remember that. But again, the hard thing, and the one thing I hope you take away from this podcast, is you really got to do something to market your practice and market your business. And you have to be relatively focused on it and do it each day, each week, each month, each year. It doesn't have to be a huge time commitment, but something like this. Also, what we do, and again, this doesn't cost a lot of money, is we'll send breakfast to firms, smaller firms and solo firms. Panera has breakfast baskets. That is a lot of what we do. It's not super expensive, but how many times has your firm gotten breakfast from Panera or a similar type place from another firm with a nice note saying, thank you, thinking of you? And then the staff that works with you go, wow, free breakfast, where do we get it from? We got it from Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers. What do? They help people that got hurt in car accidents. Well, my firm doesn't practice that area, but maybe I'd remember them if I knew someone that got hurt in a car accident. So again, it's something that's a nice thing to do that doesn't cost a lot of money. Now, the third area is attorney lunches. And I am not good about this, and I don't like people that are hypocritical. That's one of my buttons. I also like to start on time. I also like to be prepared, but I am not good at attorney lunches. What attorney lunches means, I touch base with an attorney I know or I don't even know and say, let me take you out to lunch. I chat with them. What do you do? How can I help you out? And then during the lunch, I say, well, this is what we do. So if we can ever help you out, that's great. It's not one of my areas that I really enjoy. So I do a little bit of it, not as much as I should, but taking attorneys out to lunch doesn't cost a lot of money. And that's something that you can really, really do that's positive and beneficial. Now, I talk about all this, and in the back of people's minds are, well, does it really work? As I say, I've been doing this for 30 years. I go to seminars all the time, marketing seminars. There may be a very illustrious, brilliant lawyer on this podcast named Chris Hurley out of Boston, Massachusetts. And Chris gives podcasts, and he has his own podcast, and he goes to various summits and marketing things, so that a lot of this, what I'm telling you, does actually work. I try to do most of it, but not all of it, like I comment on attorney lunches. But to give you an idea, right now at our firm, year in and year out, we have lawyers refer us cases that we actually sign up, over 100 a year. And if you think about it, that's a fair amount. We average about 8 to 10 a month. And again, we didn't get there right away. It's taken us years to build that up. And then fees. At the end of the day, why are you listening to this podcast? I'd possibly like to make some more money. I'd possibly like my practice to be more successful. I'd possibly like to get more good quality cases in. So at the end of the day, this is a business. Even though we're lawyers, I get that, but it's a business. We have to run the business well. So that from a money standpoint, our firm regularly, year in and year out, gets over $1 million in fees that our firm gets from lawyers that refer us cases. And then obviously, the lawyers that refer us cases get a referral fee from us. So we're not even counting that. So it's a win-win for everybody. And again, it doesn't cost a lot of time. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but it really is a lot of time and effort to do it well. And our friend of the firm, we have a whole separate friend of the firm that has attorneys on it. And now we have over 1,000 attorneys on it. So Cassie, since Cassie was the one that realized how important this was for our business, what would you have to add about attorney to attorney, Cassie, that people could do on a budget?
I'm gonna talk two things. Number one, Jim's not giving himself enough credit. He knew that getting attorney referrals was important. I may have systemized a lot of these things. One thing that Jim does and that you can do that doesn't cost any money is remembering a person or remembering something about a person. He does much better at this than me. He's going to remember that Albert is a Bills fan. And I'm a, give away some secret sauce here, Jim. Sorry. We'll probably send him some sort of Bills gift or something when we get off this call. He meets people. We're not going to send him that. Albert, I'm not going to do you like that. Uh, but he remembers people and he remembers things that they say. He remembers the schools that you go to. So that is something that is free that will build that relationship. And we do a lot of systemizations that really do help a lot, right? Like, so the gifts, for example, like when one of our attorney friends moves offices, we automatically send them a Keurig. This works wonderfully because my team, nobody on the team has to think about it. We know that if somebody moves, we're going to send them a Keurig. In addition, if somebody makes partner, we send them an engraved business card holder with their title on it. So I'm here for the data, the systemization, the focus on it, but the other relational side is 100% free and can actually go a lot further than the systemization side. So I talked about gifts, but Jim, I don't want to steal your shine. You can talk about print ads and mailings and email.
Sure. That we do some print ads in the local bar association. We do a print ad, Virginia Lawyer Weekly, which is a great organization. And I'd highly recommend everyone get Virginia Lawyer Weekly if you're a Virginia lawyer. We do print ads there. And let me talk a little bit about the gifts, because the gifts, again, they require time and effort, but not necessarily a lot of money. One of the gifts I love to give is most places will have a local coffee shop that sells coffee. And it's a local business, and I'm a firm believer in supporting local businesses. Why? Because I'm a local business. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll send attorneys coffee from a local coffee shop, and then we'll include a Cooper Hurley injury lawyer mug with the coffee. So for those of you that aren't fully awake yet, because this is an early morning podcast, and if you're on the West Coast, it's super early. If you get it, you have coffee in a coffee mug all together. So most people tend to remember something like that, and it doesn't cost a whole lot of money. So things like that, if you have 5 or 10 gifts like that you can send on a regular basis to lawyers you meet, and once you do it once, you want to try to do it every 6 or 12 months, because then they'll remember you. So that is important. One of the other things we do, and again, I'm not saying that you should do this because this is expensive, but we actually produce an attorney magazine, and it's on the PowerPoint. Roger Schaefer is a recent lawyer that joined our firm, and he has long hair, just in case you guys can't see that. But it's an attorney magazine. It's about 20 pages long. It has some interesting information, and it's specifically designed to the attorneys we have on our Friend of the Firm. We currently have over 1,000 local lawyers, regional lawyers, lawyers we deal with in some shape, form, or fashion. And every 6 months we send a magazine. It is a little expensive, so I'm not saying you have to send a magazine, but you could send another mailing to the lawyers you know. It could be a postcard, or it could be a newsletter or something along those lines. And again, you do want to do it on a periodic basis because people forget. Again, I don't have a background in marketing, and Cassie does, but a marketing term that I've learned is TOMA, T-O-M-A, top of mind awareness. So the way you establish that is by constantly reminding people in a nice diplomatic way who you are and what you do. So again, I really focus on the attorneys in your area that you know, and over time build that up. You could easily build an attorney list of attorneys you know over the course of a year or two in the hundreds and hundreds, and they will refer you business, your specialty, whatever it may be. All right, so now we're moving on to a topic that I may recruit Cassie for. This is digital. So this is the internet, and I laugh because I am not a digital type person. I'm not an internet person. And this is about marketing on a budget. So we spend a lot of money in this area, but this is marketing on a budget. So I will say a few things. I'll ask Cassie to talk a little bit more in depth about the digital because she focuses a lot on that, and she's very technically savvy on that. But the bottom line is that you got to have a decent web presence. You got to have a decent web page. And there's a lot of businesses out there that can provide that for you. They're not super expensive. And the vast majority of you listening to this already have your web page. And you just want to be sure that you have someone competent that makes it and modifies it and can give you some advice on what's happening in the world of digital without having to pay them vast sums of money. And then you periodically want to go ahead and test your website. What I mean by that, I'll often contact other lawyers through their website, and all websites at the very end have contact me, and you put various information in there. And I'll say, Jim Hurley, touching base, following up with you on this issue I talked to you recently. Here's my email, please contact me. You'd be amazed at how many people don't contact me for whatever reason. It just doesn't get to them. It gets lost in the digital void. So you just want to be sure your website works. That's really important. Some of the things that you can focus on in-house, if you're a podcast, for example, the firm does podcast here at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers from time to time. Podcasting is a big thing now. Obviously, we're doing a podcast with Virginia Lawyer Weekly on this. So you can do podcasts, and that doesn't cost astronomical sums of money. I mentioned Chris Early from Boston, who may be listening to this. He has a podcast. His podcast is great. Cassie and I were on his podcast in the recent past. So, podcasts are something that not only can you do, but you can learn a lot from. I listen to podcasts all the time, marketing podcasts primarily, because I want to try to get better. In-house reviews. You want to have a system set up for in-house reviews. Cassie, I will have you talk a little bit about in-house reviews and how important that is and the system we use at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers to help all our friends out there.
Sure. So the most efficient resource or the most efficient way to use time really for your digital presence is to have a really, really good Google business profile, right? So that's if somebody's looking for injury lawyer near me, family lawyer near me, you want your firm to show up in that MAT pack, 3-pack, sometimes it's a 4-pack. That algorithm consists of a million different pieces, right? We in the marketing world believe that number one or number two, the either first or second thing that has the most weight are reviews. Okay. So number one, you should be fully utilizing that Google business profile. Google wants to see that you're doing it. So add photos, add videos, answer the questions if there are some, connect your social media profiles. All of that is free. Okay. But again, the most impactful thing is to obtain reviews. So we get reviews a few different ways. The main way that we get reviews is that when a client is here in person, we say, well, let me back up. Actually, when the paralegal is saying, can you come in Friday at 2:00? They say, yes. They say, wonderful. My marketing team will be here. Would you mind leaving us a review when you come in? 9 times out of 10, they say yes. So they come in, and then somebody from the marketing department will go upstairs and say, hey, would you give us a 5-star rating? They say yes. And then we lead them to our Google business profile so they can leave a review. One important sort of technical note is to make sure that they're not connected to your Wi-Fi when you do this. That's just a technical piece. However, it's extremely important. And they leave us a review. Let's say that your clients don't come in, maybe your firm is remote. So having some other sort of system for this is very helpful. So maybe your clients didn't have the time. Well, make sure that you have a 4x6 postcard with a QR code that can lead them to your Google business profile. If you don't really see your clients in person a lot, you should have, again, a system for asking for reviews. Hey, would you mind leaving us a Google review? Those are the most important reviews that you can get. If they don't have a Gmail, they cannot leave a Google review. So then say, okay, will you leave a Facebook review? Ironically enough, Facebook reviews show up on your Google business profile. So again, doing it in person will yield the best results, but if not, please set up a system for obtaining these reviews.
Okay, Cassie, thanks so much. And then the next slide continues talking a little bit about digital. And that, as I say, the vast majority of people on this will have a website. SEO is search engine optimization. So whoever you use for your website hopefully can help you with your search engine optimization. Cassie talked a little bit about Google My Business, so that's the way you can do it. Reviews are really crucial. And it's like a lot of what I said today. It doesn't cost you a lot of money, but it does require time and effort, and you have to have a good system in place. Here at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, we say SOP. SOP is standard operating procedure. And I'm the managing attorney here, and I try to have a standard operating procedure for everything we do here. And I wake up at night because that's not how the world really works, but I always strive to reach that goal. But on reviews, we have a standard operating procedure each and every time. It has to be followed. It not always is, but we do a really huge effort on getting reviews. We average approximately on a given month, probably 25 to 30 reviews. And as I say, we're a relatively big firm and we represent a fair amount of people. But year in and year out, we get about 400 reviews. So it's really important. So I'd really focus on that. And then we talked a little bit about podcasts. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is branding. And branding is kind of a marketing word. And the vast majority of people on this podcast are lawyers, much like myself. So branding, I'm defining branding pursuant to Jim Hurley, a lawyer that markets. I'm not defining branding pursuant to having an MBA in marketing, an undergrad degree in marketing, and a background in marketing. Cassie's laughing from her facial expression, as everyone can see. But to me, branding really is people know about you. You know, they know who you are and they know what you do. The story I always tell people is I've lived in the Norfolk, Virginia area for 30 plus years, and I've practiced injury law 30 plus years. And I think everybody that I know knows what I do, and they know how to get a hold of me. Recently, I was at a social function, casually chatting with someone I knew, and they mentioned they knew someone that got hurt in a car wreck. And I just said, you know, did you refer them on over to us or can we help them? And they go, well, why? Why would I do that? And obviously they had no idea what I did. And obviously they had no idea who I was, even though I had known them for a while. So branding to me is they got to know what you do. And you constantly have to tell them over and over and over again, no matter how you do it. So here at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, we have a jingle. Not everybody's going to have a jingle depending on what you practice. And we have a tagline. And those are the two things I'm going to focus on. You know, we have the phone number too. But really the jingle and the tagline are unbelievably important because you want people to remember, you know, what you do and who you are. So here at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, our jingle's no need to worry, call Cooper Hurley. And I can't sing it because I have no rhythm, no melody. But we blast that out everywhere with the hope that people will remember that jingle. No need to worry, call Cooper Hurley. What does it mean? Well, if you're in a car accident, call us. We'll take care of everything. You don't need to worry about anything but getting better. And we, over time, keep pushing that and pushing that. And the other is our tagline. We're the car crash experts. That's what we do. Our primary business is car crash related. We do some other stuff, premises stuff, railroad stuff, other significant injuries, but primarily we're the car crash experts. So we really focus on that. So people know what we do. And then obviously we have a number 333-3333, but it's part of our brand. So we want people to know who we are, Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, and then what we do. We help people out when they're banged up in car wrecks or other significant injuries. You'll notice our name is not Cooper Hurley PLLC or Cooper Hurley PLLP. I always get confused with the Virginia State Bar. I think we're a PLLC. But we're Cooper Hurley injury lawyers. Everywhere, that's what we are. So you constantly have to tell people who you are and what you do over and over and over again. And that's part of branding. The next slide talks a little bit about promo items. And everyone should have some promo items. It doesn't matter what it is, but everyone should have them, and they're not that expensive. For example, we have grocery shopping bags, and these are great. So after we represent somebody, we fill this up with goodies for the client. When they come in to pick up their check, we give them a bag with all this stuff in them. And again, it's going to be individual to your firm and how you do things and what it is. But I'm just trying to give you some ideas. Another one I love, and I love this because this was my idea. You tend to always love your ideas if you think about it. But this is a grocery shopping list with a magnet. And we send this out to everybody saying, put this on your refrigerator so that way you have a grocery shopping list. Now, I know we have stainless steel, so that's a little bit of an issue with refrigerators. But a lot of times they can stick this somewhere on the side of the fridge or something like this. Doesn't cost a lot of money. You can mail it, so it doesn't cost a lot of money. And people tend to really like this. And then obviously on the bottom of it, it has Cooper Hurley injury lawyers. Another thing that we really like and has been very, very successful is we have your classic magnetic 2024 calendar magnet, even though we're now in 2025, which is kind of scary. But I picked up a 2024. And it's a calendar magnet, and it's relatively large. It's 4x6. And every year we send this out in November. Not in December, but in November. Why not in December? Because everyone sends stuff in December. Be different. Be unique. So we send this in November. And then the letter we say has it, put this on your refrigerator. This is your refrigerator magnet. This is your refrigerator calendar. Put it on your refrigerator. If you think about it, if you can have your stuff on someone's refrigerator, it will probably stay there. So that's been really, really successful. So those are some promo items, but you always want to tell everyone what you do. Cassie, did you want to talk at all a little bit about branding? Because that's more of a marketing term.
You covered a good chunk of it. When you think about your brand, all of what Jim said is so incredibly important. To take it a bit further, your brand is really how your company makes people feel when they see your logo or when they meet somebody from your company. That sounds really soft and mushy. And I'm sorry, but it's still true. We're still humans connecting with humans. So when, again, when you're creating these pieces, when you're creating the SOPs, when you're creating the language that your receptionist will say when they answer the phone, all of those pieces are a part of your brand. So just think about that and apply it as it makes sense.
And again, that doesn't cost a lot of money. Now, again, this is marketing on a budget. Having a marketing plan, you got to have a marketing plan. It's important to have a plan. And when I say a marketing plan, you can take a yellow legal pad. I use 8.5 by 11. I don't use the legal old styles anymore, but a yellow legal pad. And you could say marketing plan for 2025 and write down stuff. That can be a marketing plan. But you need a marketing plan because you need to know where you're going to go. And you want to revisit your marketing plan on a regular basis. We have a yearly marketing plan that Cassie does, and we revisit it and we look at it, and it helps guides us for our marketing. And for those of you that want, I'm a firm believer in the abundance theory. There's plenty of work for all of us. We're willing to share. So anybody on this podcast that would like our marketing plan for 2025, we're happy to send that to you. Just shoot us an email. Cassie Lewis or myself will be happy to send it to you. Cassie's email is clewis@cooperhurley.com. My email is jhurley@cooperhurley.com. We'll be happy to share it with you. But you got to have a marketing plan. You have to know where you're going to go. You have to spend some time and effort with it. You have to review it on a regular basis. Unbelievably important. Now, we've talked a lot about a lot of stuff today. So how do you prioritize it? It's not easy. You never get unbelievably good at prioritizing everything you need to do. And then obviously, if you're a small firm or a solo, you've got to practice law and take care of that. So my goal today is to give you 2 or 3 things from everything we talked about that you can actually do. So this is my recommendation. Start on or continue working on your friend of the firm list. That is crucial. That is your gold. That is your gold mine. But to get the gold, you got to dig it out. So that's number 1. Number 2, block off some time each and every week just to focus on marketing. Some lawyers call it business development, whatever term you use. I tend to block off Friday afternoons and I don't take any appointments. And that's the time I'll spend a lot of times on marketing or business development. And I put it in my calendar each and every week. And again, I'm laughing because most of you are younger than I am, but I still keep a calendar the old-fashioned way. Every Friday afternoon, from noon to 5 is blocked off. So you just got to develop a system where you're actually taking some time each and every week spending it on marketing. If you can just do those 2 things, that it's going to help your firm out and help your practice out tremendously. Now we're winding down. It's now 10:56 and the podcast was set for an hour. And so Cassie, this is your opportunity to say anything you would like to do before I wrap it up with our friends from Virginia Lawyer Weeklies who have done a great job on this podcast. Cassie, I turn it over to you for any final comments.
Help. Hi, everybody. I know that marketing can seem sometimes like just overwhelming, and it can be. Whatever you decide to do it well. So if it's 1 or 2 or 3 things, dive as deep as you can into those. Everything that we talked about today, like Jim said, it does not break the bank. So just try to focus on 2 to 3 things that you can do very, very well. Now, Jim, before you wrap up, you do have some questions. Would you like to talk? Would you like to go through some of those questions?
Sure, that would be great.
All right. Joe asked, any suggested ways for lawyers to find their own Cassie?
That's a great question. And that essentially what you need to do is that you just need to go ahead and tell everybody you're looking for a marketing person. Some of the areas you can do Indeed, so you can generate some possible interest through Indeed, through job, looking for a marketing person. That there's an American Marketing Association. The American Marketing Association has local chapters. Here in the Norfolk area, there's a local chapter. They have a job board. We've utilized that before to try to find marketers. And then the other thing you can do is there are now virtual marketers or part-time CMOs, virtual CMOs. So if you Google that, that's an opportunity as well. So those would be some of the ideas in trying to find somebody. If you're a small firm or a smaller firm or a solo, realistically hiring a full-time CMO would be pretty expensive, but getting a virtual one or a part-time one would be, a good idea.
Jessica said, do you recommend attorney to attorney marketing to firms in the same field of practice or only other areas of practice?
My answer would be both. Believe it or not, our firm gets referrals from other personal injury firms when there's a conflict. And then if we have a conflict, we'll refer it out to other personal injury firms. But primarily your focus would be on firms and lawyers that do not practice in your area. That would really be your focus.
Okay, one last comment from our friend Chris Hurley. He said he went to Boston University and we sent him a sweatshirt. Next level gifting right there. So that was just some kudos from Chris to you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Cassie, for those questions. And then finishing up, these are some words of wisdom that I've garnered over 30 years that I've kind of touched on. Hey, no one knows everything. we're all trying to help each other out. We're all trying to learn. That there's a few organizations that are really good that I'm actively involved in, so I'm going to go ahead and pitch them. Ben Glass out of Northern Virginia, great legal marketing, has some great stuff. I'd highly recommend Ben. Ken Hardinson out of North Carolina, he has Pilma. Pilma has some great stuff. I'd highly recommend Ken. I've already mentioned Chris Hurley. He works a lot with solo lawyers and small firms, and he does great work. So, and they're not super expensive. So again, those would be some recommendations. So at the end of the day, to wrap this up, you got to remember, you can market your firm and your practice without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you got to put your time and effort into it. And people got to know who you are and what you do. So I want to thank everybody at Virginia Lawyer Weekly for helping us put this podcast on. They've done a great job. I'd like to thank Cassidy Lewis, our Chief Marketing Officer. I enjoy working with her each and every day, even though sometimes she's mean to me, but I've learned to accept that and have thick skin, so I'm okay with that. And then, as I said, you have our contact information. We're happy to share the PowerPoint slide with you. We're happy to share our marketing plan with you. And if you just want to talk marketing, Cassie loves to talk marketing. I'm happy to talk marketing. But at the end of the day, we're really here to help everybody else out. And I think that's a good mentality to have going forward. So if you're marketing, try to keep that positive, optimistic mentality. And thank you very much for letting me chat with you today.